If I say the word beauty, what comes to mind? I bet you it wasn't art or music or like a beautiful sunset, a beautiful painting, nature. I bet it wasn't like beautiful, well-presented food made by a chef or a newborn baby. I bet you anyone it was a person. Probably a woman, a face, a stunning face, one that kind of meets all the beauty ideals. Or maybe it was like something to do with cosmetics, you know, like something Pinterestable, aesthetically pleasing, like that kind of image. Now hold on to that thought. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're good, hope you're well. Now, question for you. I talk about beauty all the time. It's no secret. It is my favorite topic. It's the one that I care about the most, I'd say, out of the things I've spoken about so far. And it's actually the most popular on this channel. So apparently you all care about it too. And I think that checks out because I would say that the majority of us, or as a whole, we are undoubtedly obsessed with beauty. And this is not an accident. It's not an accident because I think it is natural to an extent, but it's also imposed upon us at a very, very strong degree. Beauty, and I'd say more specifically attraction, is determined by a few factors. There are organic factors, AKA, you know, chemistry. There are also psychological factors, like when we talk about, you know, I married someone like my dad, these sorts of things are psychological. And then also, and I believe this to be the biggest factor of them all, there are social/cultural factors. And so I think to think that your attractiveness preferences are purely your own, to think that they are formed purely independently, free from any outside influences, is a lie. The same way I said in a previous video that we are not independent thinkers, or we're not as independently thinking as much as we would like to believe, because unfortunately we are sheep because our subconscious is influenced by so many things. I think the same applies with our attractiveness preferences. I think there is a part of our brain that decides what it likes for itself, absolutely. But I think for the most part, we do the majority of our thinking with our subconscious brain, and our subconscious brain is heavily influenced by the culture around us, the media, the influences. And so culture and media, alongside all those political forces, racism, sexism, patriarchy, capitalism, all of that, they all do a stellar job in telling us what we find attractive, what our attractiveness preferences are, and then convincing us that it is our own preference. Psychologists strongly argue that it might be near impossible to differentiate what we actually think is beautiful from what society tells us is beautiful. Hence why we think we are having original thoughts when actually we're being influenced, because it's almost like we can't differentiate between the two. My favorite beauty, or I guess anti-beauty writer, I should call her Jessica Tofino, she argues that for women, for the most part, the participation in the beauty industry is basically compulsory. There are tasks that are so integrated into what it means to be like a presentable woman that we think of them as natural, or we don't even think of them at all. But actually, these tasks are effortful and they're expensive. Things like getting our nails done, shaving our legs, wearing professional makeup, even just getting your hair done. Like before turning on this camera, I fixed my hair and I put makeup on. I did not even give it a second thought. It was like a default. It's just like brushing my teeth. I'm about to film, let me do my face. When Keith turns the camera on, he brushes his beard, fixes his shape up. You see the difference? And you know what? Unfortunately, not to be a pessimist, but at the end of the day, I feel like when it comes to beauty culture, at this very moment, it is what it is. And it seems like for the time being, not long term, but for the time being, there isn't really much we can do right now to sort of dismantle this idea of a beauty standard even existing, and to just get past the fact that we are sheep to it. We are essentially subjects to this beauty standard to a degree. But what I actually want to talk about after that long intro is this overlap between beauty and our perception of morality. There is a philosopher by the name of Heather Widdows. She has a book called Perfect Me, Beauties as an Ethical Ideal, which basically covers this very topic. I've not read her book, but I've read about the book. And she just explores this concept in great detail. And she argues that beauty ideals have shifted from purely aesthetics to ethics. So what was once like beauty ideals were just about how things look, they've now moved into, yes, aesthetics still, but also ethics, morals. And she said that we now equate beauty failures to moral failings. And we do this through our choice of language. Because if you think about the sort of common phrases that you might have heard around these beauty ideals, things like be your best self, or this idea of letting yourself go. These are almost like emotively moral, ethical words and language. as opposed to purely just talking aesthetically. And the fact that you have negative moral properties such as stupid, slow, or lazy being associated with fatness, and then you have positive moral traits being associated with slimness, things like hardworking and disciplined, that in itself is now attaching ethics to aesthetics. And if for 1 second, just for 1 second, I was gonna play devil's advocate, you could argue that yes, for the most part, for most people, for many people, I don't know the stats, being in shape, being physically fit does happen off the back of hard work, off the back of discipline. And so you could argue that the opposite would be true for being out of shape, being unhealthy, that could be associated with not having discipline, with not being hardworking, so being lazy, for example. But then, if you're gonna play devil's advocate on top of the devil's advocate, firstly, putting aside the fact that obviously there are more things that contribute to somebody's weight than just these things such as hardworking and not hardworking, how would you then judge the morality of, let's say, a fat person who gives to charity, who has a PhD, maybe they work 60 hours a week to provide for their family, maybe they're insanely kind. Doesn't that person then exhibit good discipline, high levels of discipline, as well as on top of good morals? But because of the language we choose to associate with fatness, we also label them with negative moral traits. How does that contradiction work? And the answer is it doesn't. It doesn't work. And it doesn't work because we are trying to define morality by things that have always defined morality. But then now, more recently, we're trying to define morality with things that never defined morality. So the two are clashing. Things like how you treat others or how hard you might work for your family, those have always been markers of a good moral compass. Things like aesthetics and how big you are, how small you are, weren't always markers of a moral compass. And I think that what we've done is we've tried to make them associated with morality just to appease our biases. What I mean by this, and an example of this we see all the time on social media, people pretend that fat people are so wrong because they're promoting obesity, they're promoting an unhealthy lifestyle, when really and truly you couldn't give an eck. You couldn't care less about what lifestyle they were promoting. The truth of the matter is you just don't like the way they look and you want an excuse to be mean and you want a way to justify your meanness. Because the age-old example of, well, we don't do the same for skinny people, you don't do the same for bodybuilders who do insanely unhealthy things to get their body fat down to an insanely unhealthy percentage. We don't say to them you're promoting an unhealthy lifestyle or nowhere near on the same scale. And the reason for that is because we're fine with the way they look. They aesthetically please us, and therefore we don't look for an excuse to bash them morally on their morality, because to bash someone on their morality is socially acceptable. To bash someone purely on aesthetics is still kind of unacceptable, isn't it? And so now we've attached aesthetics with morality as a way to justify us just being mean to people that we don't like the look of, if we're keeping it real. And then bringing it back to women, there's this implication on us that we are morally and ethically obligated to maintain this beauty ideal. And I think people literally take offense when a woman cannot or chooses not to adhere to beauty ideals or to beauty standards. Like, how dare she show up to work looking unkept? This is not appropriate. How dare she love her fat body? How dare she not shave her armpits or her legs? You see it all the time, people putting up sick emoji faces just because a woman hasn't shaved her armpits, hasn't shaved her legs. Like, this is unacceptable, this is disgusting. And at the end of the day, what we're saying is, how dare she be confident despite not fitting my beauty ideal? How dare she be confident existing in a body that I myself would not be confident existing in? How can she love what she loves when I hate what she loves? That's essentially what we're saying. And I'm not confident that we can quickly and effectively dismantle beauty standards and beauty ideals. I think we're on that journey, but the powers that be, the money makers, the media, all, like, the beauty standard upholds so much. And I think economically and I don't know, what's the word, like systemically, it just does so much good for those who want to keep the world as it is, that I think it is going to be a task to completely dismantle it. And I say completely dismantle it and not just like put a band-aid or put a fake facade over it that looks like we're making progress when really and truly we're not making progress. We're just shifting we're just shifting the goalpost. And so, not to be a pessimist, but I'm not confident that we can like quickly and effectively dismantle beauty standards as a whole, but I think we can train our own minds. And I think that's like the common theme on this channel for me, is like, let's think, yeah? Of course, we're gonna live in our subconscious, but sometimes let's engage our conscious brain as well. And in this instance, we can train our minds not to see beauty as a moral thing. Let's not see lack of beauty as a moral failing. Seeing beauty as a matter of a moral or an ethical hierarchy, that is exactly what fuels things like hate comments. It fuels some forms of racism and sexism, is what causes us to overlook the bad behavior of beautiful people, and it causes us to greatly exaggerate the sins of people who we deem as ugly. It seeps into our opinions of people where beauty should not be, where beauty plays no part, because objectively speaking, beauty has no role in this space. We saw it in the recent adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, where beauty ideals, which essentially in this case were rooted in racism, as they often are, it caused people to unfairly critique a show that they'd never even watched, purely because they were not happy with the aesthetic choice of one of the characters. Not the acting, which is what theatre is about, but the aesthetics of the person's face. Not the set design, not the props, her face. We saw it with, I don't know if you remember, the Albanian news show that resorted to having an almost topless news reporter in order to boost their ratings, and guess what? It worked. People are more inclined to watch the news if the news reporter, a woman, wears no t-shirt under her blazer. The news. In what world does receiving the news and sexually explicit imagery go hand in hand? But it did. The ratings worked. The ratings went up. A person's attractiveness should have absolutely no bearing, no influence on how much we enjoy a theatre show, how much we engage in political news. But because of how beauty ideals have conditioned our brain and how much they've seeped into every single area of our life, especially when it comes to women, it affects us. It's the same reason why when a female politician isn't to your liking, the first thing people will do is attack her looks. What's that got to do with her policies? What's that got to do with how she's running things? Absolutely nothing. But our first point of call, rather than to outright go for the things we're upset about, is we attack her looks. Not so much with men. I don't see it so much with male politicians, with male anybody. It's because our brains have attached morality and beauty. And so when we're attacking someone's morality, we go for her beauty too. And it makes no sense. This is why we need to think with our conscious brains, because our subconscious brain, that would make sense. Oh yeah, I hate her politics, this ugly old. That doesn't make sense. So if you take away one thing from this video, at the very least, try to detach beauty from morality. Try to stop showing favor to people that you find attractive. I get it when it's like maybe you're trying to actually gain favor with that person, but even outside of flirting, even outside of romantic relationships, we genuinely treat people nicer if they look better to us, and that needs to stop. We need to just treat people good regardless. We need to stop demonizing people and looking for fault with people who we deem unattractive, and you need to stop and think and say, why is this person rubbing you the wrong way? Even if you don't do it, why do you feel negatively towards this person? And be honest with yourself. Because you think they're ugly, just know that you're not alone, but you can override that thought and you can correct yourself. That's all I have to say, guys. Let me know what you think. I'm so sorry if I was squinting the whole time. I have a bit of a headache. But I wanted to get this video out, so I hope you enjoyed it. As always, let me know what you think down below in the comments. I love reading them, and I will be reading them, and I will be replying. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and send this to a friend, and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Love you all. Bye.